Hey guys, hi. We have 40 minutes. This is the last session of Web Today, so I feel kind of honored that they want me to come back on stage. Any designers in here? Let's get some hands up. Oh, there's a few. Any developers in here? Any product business people? Oh, there's a few, yeah. There's still a few people who didn't raise their hands. I wonder what those people actually did. Carpenters? Anyone? No? Okay, well, anyways, bonjour. Really glad to be here. Second year at Nantes at Web Today. It's been amazing already. My name is Michael, and I am a designer. And that's my Twitter handle right there. That's also my last name. So if you have any questions afterwards, you can reach out. And if I say anything that you find is remotely clever, feel free to tweet and take pictures. I read all of them afterwards and cry because you guys are awesome. But you know what? I thought a lot about what type of talk that I want to give at an event like this. Because at these types of conferences, you have lots of brilliant people telling you these wonderful tech talks about how to do great things, right? You have all these technical things. And I kind of wanted to take a step away from that and see if I could bring like a personal story to the stage. Because you can really learn a lot by telling a good story and kind of sharing some of the more personal aspects of working in the industry of making things. So I've put together this little keynote, which I am humbly calling How I Became a Maker and Learned the Secrets of the Universe. Yep. Woo! Yes. Okay. You guys are awake. It's 4 in the afternoon, right? Okay, let's talk about the secrets of the universe. Let me tell you a story. I was always really interested in making things. Now, I drew a lot as a kid. Most kids do, right? Here's a self-portrait, age 3. So happy my mom saved these so I can share them with lots of people. Now, I was sort of a cool kid from the 80s, growing up in the 90s, like many of you guys, I suppose. And from very early on, I drew things that interested me. Now, this is 2 characters from the Danish television series Bamse and Kylling. Now, Bamse and Kylling translated is actually bear and chicken, which I thought was kind of fun. It's sort of this Danish children's TV show. And definitely one of my favorite shows when I was a kid. You know, you can already tell I'm a pretty talented illustrator by then, you know. That's obviously Bamse and Kylling right there. Yep. Pretty good. Love the face on Bamse. Yep. I even dressed up as Bamse at Halloween, you know. My mom bought me this oversized suit. Still have it. Can't fit it. I grew up, became a teenager, and I became a geek. I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. I built my own computers. I pirated games off the internet. And this is a fantastically blurry picture of my setup back then. I love that computer, right? You guys remember your first computer? It was just awesome. I spent so much time at it. And we're doing games in this thing called Click and Play. I don't know if anyone remembers Click and Play. Any hands? It's a pretty rare thing. There's actually a few hands. Awesome. It was made by Maxis, and it was this amazing little game-making tool. And I remember doing these 32 by 32 pixel sprites, like these ones here. And the way you programmed the game was through this event editor. And I'd sit next to my friend Rasmus, and he was doing the coding, and I was doing the art. And we made this imaginary game company called Sun Games. I have no idea why we called it that. I think we just thought it sounded cool. And we'd do all sorts of games, like some of these things here. And I remember really wanting like a black keyboard, but I couldn't afford one. So I spray painted my old keyboard black with Warhammer paint. Like, that is probably the epitome of being a geek. You know, you take your keyboard, you take all the buttons out, and you paint it with Warhammer paint. So that happened. It was really sticky afterwards. It wasn't a very good keyboard. But I kept it for like 8 years because, you know, I made it, right? And I painted and played a lot of Warhammer. Anyone ever played Warhammer? Yeah. My crowd, yes. So I think painting Warhammer figures was probably like my first real introduction to and better understanding of color. And I got my first digital camera. Do you guys remember when you got your first camera? I got this brick here called the PowerShot A200. I love that thing. And while I was always tinkering with my computer and we made these games, I think getting a digital camera was kind of like my gateway drug to making more things on the computer. And I found this place called DeviantArt or DeviantArt. Anyone remember DA? Yep. There's a few people there. You know, it was probably my first real creative outlet. Like I uploaded these pictures that I took with the PowerShot there, and I got likes and I got comments. And this kind of brings me to the first of the big secrets I learned as a creative as I was finding my way. And that is, you want to stay motivated. Now, it's a foundational skill of any creative, any successful creative. And I think it's very easy for people to get interested in something new, but it's much harder to sustain that interest, right? It's much easier to start things or talk about starting things, a lot of people do that, than it is to continue or to finish something. Now, the way that you hack that is to stay motivated, to continue doing what it is that you want to be doing, right? And one of the best ways to stay motivated is to get feedback and get appraisal for the things that you do and the progress you're making. Now, there ain't nothing wrong with the like economy, right? Like, post that stuff to Dribble, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, wherever you need to keep the likes and those pats on the back coming. Now, I think we have like a really human need to be rewarded for the stuff that we do. And the main reason why people stop pursuing their dreams is because they lose motivation. So try to stay motivated. Now, I finished high school in 2003, and this lovely picture was taken of me. At this point, I was very interested in design. I had learned myself HTML, taken my first steps in Photoshop, and I thought, you know what, I'll go and study design at design school. Boy, was I wrong. Now, this is a picture that was brought in the local newspaper. That's me in the middle right there, visiting with my new design school. And it's obvious I'm obviously the only guy, right? Boom. I was really out of place. Not just because I was the only guy, you know, you might think that would be inherently a good thing, but because there was very little expertise in the sort of things I was interested in. Like, look at that gullible fool. Like, he thinks he's on his way to become a designer. It's like, right? They had us design all sorts of things. You know, here's a cover for a chair I designed. I hated it. I'm pretty sure the teachers weren't too keen on me either. The whole thing seemed so inbred. You had to know someone who knew someone to do anything interesting in design. It seemed wrong to me, and I just wanted to make things on the computer. In the meantime, while I was not at school, I designed and coded some websites for people around me. Here's a website for my father's one-man company, a website for a dentist I worked at. I actually worked at a dentist, and I made the website. Splash screen I made for a local butterfly park back when we had splash screens, remember that? And if we choose German, I don't know why, but if we choose German, you actually went in there, you can't tell from the still, but the butterflies were sort of moving, they're GIFs. Gorgeous, gorgeous stuff, right? And to be honest, I didn't learn a lot at design school. I grew my hair long, I drank a lot of beers, I finished the education because my mom told me to, but after that I swore, you know what, I'll do something totally different with my life. I will not have anything related to design. And this kind of brings me to another lesson, right? This might be more for the younger people, but I sure wish I could go back and tell myself this. Like, if things really aren't going according to plan, like, you shouldn't really worry too much. There's always something else waiting behind your current obstacle, and somehow you will find your way. Now, I found my way into a turtle's costume right there, beautiful. I enrolled at Roskilde University in Denmark in 2005, studying natural sciences as far away from design as I possibly could. And attending university was kind of like a breath of fresh air after the toxicity of design school. I became the chairman of the frat bar. I started all manner of things. I was like a fish in water. And as the chairman of the frat bar, I was suddenly running this small organization, and we had to make flyers for parties. And seeing as, you know, I had some experience on making things on the computer, I was like, sure, I can make some flyers. You know, make some flyers. Some people sort of saw those flyers, came to the party, and they sort of like, hey, could you make this book, this student handbook that we're doing? I was like, sure, I can try to make a book, whatever. Because design had sort of gotten a lot less serious for me. It wasn't really a goal anymore. I was just sort of doing it for fun, right? 2006, also the year I got my first MacBook. Anyone here remember when they got their first Mac? Yep. Yeah, it changed my life. I love that thing, that white plastic brick thing. It was amazing. And I got really interested in replacing those wonderful icons everywhere on the OS. Had made some icons before on Windows, but this was an entirely new ball game. You know, played around a lot with drawings of stuff on the computer, drew my new camera, and I did wallpapers. Now, wallpapers is great because that's something you do that other people can use. It's kind of like a utilitarian art in a way, right? People put it on their computer. And I made lots of wallpapers, really fell in love with Apple, became a complete Apple fanboy, made lots of wallpapers like this. Rekindled those click-and-play days and made sets of icons, these little 32 by 32 pixel icons, and gave them away for developers for free so they could use them in their apps. Also tried some isometric 32 by 32, really tricky. And I remember it clearly. I was sort of sitting in geography class as I launched my first portfolio. It was called Pixel Resort. I don't know why. Probably thought it sounded cool. And I needed a place to keep all of these illustrations I was doing. I had no idea what I was getting into yet. You know, I was mostly just doing this for fun, right? But it taught me something really valuable. It is that you need to make yourself available and findable. Now, this seems super obvious, but a lot of people wait way too long before getting their own place. Now, while it's great to be on DeviantArt or Dribble or Behance or whatever, it was a game changer for me when I opened up my own portfolio and on my own domain where I controlled the entire experience. I still didn't, I wasn't sure I wanted to be a designer yet. I was doing stuff like this for my bachelor's degree. I studied human-computer interaction, tried to be a programmer, found out I was the worst programmer ever, did lots of these UML schemes, did some anthropological work, user testing, focus group interviews, you know, the academic route to making things better, but was constantly drawn to the visual side of things. This is a UI we did for one of our projects. The type of websites I made changed a bit. Here's another one for my father's company. And I think a consistent thing in the stuff that I did early on was sort of a love of colors and a love of textures. I did lots of these little replacement icons back when we replaced all the icons and customized our computers a lot. More wallpapers, you know, loving that neon. And I ended up writing my bachelor's project with a bunch of my friends, and we designed this new way to experience Copenhagen through various historical characters. Here's a website for the Spartan's Guide to the City. Where would the Spartan eat his breakfast? Went on wonderful photo shoots. This is obviously the Amazon ladies. At this point, I was pretty sure I wanted to work with design. Like, I was back in design, completely fell in love with it again. And so me and the guys who wrote that project, we all applied for the master's degree at IT University of Copenhagen. Now, I remember the day we handed in our motivational applications. This picture was taken. That's the 5 of us, idiots. But we all sort of handed in the motivational application. It was a huge day. That's what my motivational application looked like. That summer, I was the only one out of the 5 of us that did not get in. So it was like, my academic career came to a screeching halt. I was really bummed out, but then I remembered this thing that I learned, right? Don't worry, you'll find your way. I launched a new version of Pixel Resort, and soon I was doing all sorts of freelance stuff, more illustration stuff, trying to improve my drawing skills and getting paid for it at the same time, doing some fun conceptual work. This is for an antivirus solution, obviously, right? Took almost every opportunity to create things in Photoshop. I made this little Obama wallpaper back when the world looked very different from today. Saw WALL-E, and I loved it. I was really trying to push my rendering skills. Went straight back home from the cinema that night and recreated it in Photoshop. That's 1,500 layers in Photoshop. And it was around that time I got an offer to join a Danish agency called Retouch. I was a small group of people doing client work for a whole range of people. Now, I hadn't had a real job as a designer before. I was like, hadn't had an actual salary before and a team before. So I joined, and we moved into this loft here, and I got to work on so many different things. You won't believe it. I'll show you a few of the things. Got to work on the logo, which is cool. I love working on logos. Got to work on, you know, illustrations for financial institutes. Really weird. I was drawing these scenes, and I sucked at perspective drawing. Never could get the hang of it. That table still looks completely wrong to me, but the client approved these. So I was obviously doing lots of icon work, sketching them out and rendering these little vector icons for various clients. More icons for a food delivery company. I got to do a ton of websites with horrible stock images, right? This is one with the baby. It's definitely one of my favorite worst ones, right? It's like, but you know, we've all been there. Anyone know what this is? No? you're in for a treat. This is the Jess Extender, the premium penis enlargement kit. Now, yes, let it sink in. It's horrible, I know. At Retouch, we're doing graphics for them. So yes, I ended up working on the affiliate packaging, banners, and website design for the Jess Extender. I told you I worked on lots of weird stuff, right? I put that doctor up there. You see that doctor? Looks real professional. It's gonna help you out. And made all these banners and things. It was so weird. We worked with some upscale supermarkets to do credit card designs. Completely different ball game. Even did like product photo shoots for these supermarkets. They had hundreds of products, right? As you know, when you usually do these product photo shoots, you take so many pictures of them, and then you take all those pictures and you send them to a country that has cheaper labor to cut them out, right? I was the cheap labor. It was me. I was cutting those pictures out. I cut that thing out. But once in a while, I got to work on illustration stuff, logos, where I got to play around with that cartoony style that I really loved. And character design. This is a guy I made for an online koi shop. I'm not exactly sure why a koi would be fishing at a koi shop, because he's buying his friends, or I don't know. But the client approved it, so it's fine. Now, what I want to say with this is that working at an agency was kind of like being drafted for the army, right? You guys who've worked at agencies or currently are working at agencies, they know what I'm talking about. It's not always fun. In fact, it's sometimes downright horrible. But you get to see all the greatest and all the worst aspects of client interactions. And it was incredibly important for me to spend that time there, because when I arrived, my PSD files were a mess. I wasn't really used to working with other designers. I didn't know much about the greater process of making things. So working with people that are better than you is a very important part of becoming better at what you want to become better at. If you're a new designer or a new developer, I always suggest that you find some sort of mentor, someone who knows the ropes, right? It certainly helped me. There was a senior designer there, Thomas Fels. He helped me a lot. I learned so much the few years I was there. Now, when I went back from working at Retouch every night, I still freelanced on the side, making application icons and pursuing the type of projects that I thought was fun, right? This was fun editing suite of software. I still made some wallpapers. But one day, I went to my boss at Retouch, Johan, and I told him, you know what? I like to quit. And it was right in the middle of the financial crisis. Everyone around me was like, Michael, you're a goddamn idiot. Why would you quit your perfectly fine job? People thought I was crazy. I launched a new version of Pixel Resort and started freelancing full time. Luckily, I got some nicer clients. And I was commissioned by Lego, for example, to come up with this new look for their icons. We're trying to nail down a style that could improve on their existing flat icons. And we tried lots of different things. I don't think they actually ended up using any of these, but it was a really fun project to work on. Got lots of free Lego. Worked on lots of little icons for people. The websites I made kind of changed. But with the introduction of the iPhone, my love for icons kind of grew from the desktop to the phone. And it was obvious to me that I was going to be doing lots of work for this platform. And right from the start, I started getting lots of client work. And started doing lots of replacement icons. Here's another take on the Adobe suite. Back when we changed our icons on our computers. We don't do that much anymore. New iTunes icons, again, solid love for tactility and colors. A more fun Safari icon. I actually ended up doing a bunch of Safari icons. In fact, I did a whole range of them, like experimental stuff, like what would it look like if the compass looked different, right? Like an army one, or a GPS one, or a needle in a glass of water, a flight compass, a nautical one with the earth underneath, right? I actually ended up turning them all into a poster that people bought and hung in their offices, which was amazing to me. And as I'm sure you've probably understood by now, I'm a nerd. I'm a gamer. I did lots of illustrations of things that inspired from games. Here's a sword from Dragon Age that I turned into a wallpaper. Anyone know what this is? Shout it out. Yeah, Civilization. That's the V logo from Civ 5. Minecraft, right? Most popular wallpaper I ever did, go figure. I did these downloadable icon sets where I actually included the PSD files so that people could build out the set and make their own. And I'm showing you all these different things because it helps me pinpoint another lesson. One of the most important lessons you can learn as a creative, and that is make shit up, right? It's okay to do something just because it is fun, just because you want to learn and just because you want to share. You can make things without clients. You can make things without someone telling you to. A lot of people feel very confined to the actual job that they do, but personal projects can easily be the driving force of any career. I'm gonna see if I can give you an example. This kind of starts with another wallpaper. I know, wallpapers. So I had this habit of making these Christmas wallpapers and kind of came to a point where people were waiting for my next yearly Christmas wallpaper. One of the people that was looking forward to it was a guy named Willie. Now, he liked the art style, and he contacted me about this idea he had for an app. And he was in Denmark. I was like, cool, a client that's not far away. Let's meet for beers. And 8 months, we decided to partner up. He had this idea for this amazing weather app. And 8 months later, we launched our first app together. Apps were very new back then, right? It was this thing called Outside, and it was a massive success. It was just everywhere. It was like you just looked through a little window and you could see what the weather looked like outside. And one morning, we woke up to this.
And of course, this is the first full week of spring. You know, the flowers are blooming, birds are chirping. I know this because I have an app on my iPhone that shows what it looks like outside. So I have to go outdoors. I can just see spring on my iPhone. It's right there. I don't have to go outside. I get spring right on the iPhone. Yeah, perfect, perfect.
That was crazy. 2 guys from Copenhagen were like, holy shit. And we were like, we should probably make a company. And we actually ended up creating a bunch of weather apps over the years. And we founded this product development studio called RoboCat, and went on to hire lots of people and work on amazing projects. And I'll get back to a few of them just to emphasize some of the lessons that I've learned. But the first lesson you should take away from that story, from the wallpaper to me meeting Willie, to us making our first weather app, to 7 years of my career, is that you never know what little side project or piece of content that will lead to the next big thing. The next thing that will shape your life. Now, every time you make something and put it on the internet, you're essentially sort of lighting a spark in a flammable room waiting for things to ignite. It's like, shh, 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 and suddenly it ignites. Now, while RoboCat was kicking off, I launched a new version of Pixel Resort. Notice how there's a consistency to this talk. Every time a new chapter in my life seems to open up, I update my portfolio. That's how often that happens. Early iOS days, I get to work on lots of UI for phones. Back when we had wood on our phones. Look at this amazing popping bubble wrap game, right? The most downloaded bubble wrap game in the world. An unreleased RoboCat app, leather textures again, UI for games, lots of stuff like this. We actually worked on one of the first Dribble apps, just helping Dan and the guys testing out their API. We did an unofficial app for the Roskilde Festival. It's one of the largest music festivals in Europe, in Northern Europe. We didn't get paid, but we got free beer, so that was fine. You know. Worked on illustrations for various things. Never considered myself particularly good at drawing. Not an illustrator by any stretch of the imagination, but it's amazing how far you can get by just trying, right? Lots of illustrations. Worked on logos for our own projects. It's a failed social media network we tried to launch. Sprites for games we made. Illustration for games. Draw these tables on my Cintiq and touch them up in Photoshop. Ship them off to the client. When I bought my apartment in Copenhagen, I drew the old building it was in. I spent a lot of time drawing that thing just so that we could hang up a notice in the hallway saying, hey, we've moved in. And I made a lot of icons, both icon sets, but also more and more app icons, particularly for iOS. And that kind of brings me to the next lesson. Like, you want to make a lot of things to really find out what you like to do, what you're good at, and perhaps what you're not very good at. You need to try as many things as possible. And I think a lot of people, they kind of quickly settle into something that they're comfortable with, right? Something that, I'm good at this, I'm not going to try that many other things. And there's kind of a double lesson here, because the way you hack this is you say yes to everything, right? If you want to make more things, people often ask me, how do you make more things? Like, you shake the tree, you create more personal projects, you put them online, you make some noise, and then you say yes to every single opportunity that comes your way. Now, I've said yes to things I had no idea how to do. Force yourself into those situations. You will learn a tremendous amount. I promise you that. Another way of saying that is fake it till you make it, right? While I was still doing desktop applications, you know, like this thing here, I was circling more and more around the art of making app icons for mobile. I loved the process of sketching out ideas and rendering those ideas and making the UI fit those concepts and going through that motion again and again. sketch, render, ideas, render, sketch, render. And by becoming really good at the process, not any particular tool, you're actually training a part of your brain that helps you build way more complex things. At Robocat, we'd go on to make lots of products with millions of users because we became good at the process of coming up with ideas, executing those while telling a good story. Lots of fun stuff like that. We did award-winning games that little kid playing around and click and play would have been amazed by.
This is where you fight to become a legend. Better gear up, because once you take off, there ain't no turning back. You either fly or die.
So over the top. We even use that process to create hardware, sketching out and rendering our ideas and then telling that story in a compelling way. We created these little digital thermometers for smartphones as an extension of one of our many weather app adventures. And we ended up launching a Kickstarter campaign in Europe in 2013. It was one of the most popular Kickstarter campaigns of 2013. We got more than 10 times the amount of funding we asked for. We went on this amazing adventure of creating these things in China, shipping more than 40,000 units to 77 countries. It's a crazy town. The point I'm trying to make is that to make anything, you need to learn the process. It's not just about tools. It's not about one specific discipline. Everyone can sort of transcend their own field of expertise and make just about anything if they just learn the process. Now, from making all these things, both through my own companies and in my capacity as a freelancer, it kind of became clear to me that there's many things to be made, but there's some things you're going to love more, right? There's just some things you like doing. And for me, that has consistently been app icons. That's why I'm wearing the Iconist t-shirt today. This was the icon from the first weather app we made called Outside. And it's amazing to me that everything about that app and all that it meant to us and all the people that used it can be represented by that single image. Making app icons truly became one of my big passions. To me, iconists are kind of like the jewelers of design in a way. We get to craft these little gems, these little pieces of concentrated design, and you get to tell this little story in a wonderfully restricted canvas. And you create this little scalable branding element. I've made icons like these where you get to use your Painterly side, and icons like these where you have to carefully consider every little shape, every little gradient, and where symbolism is key, and where you try to layer meaning into the pixels. This aperture inside a star. And sometimes even trying to mix that love of tactility with simplicity. Now, I even make icons for fun sometimes, like these things I made for a personal project I call App Icon Wars. Just to play around with the constrictions, what happens when you remove the outlines of an object? Can you still recognize the characters? You get to play around with fun renderings like this, and you get to play around with textures and lighting, and also the more sillier parts of it. And I've made a lot of icons, in short, for my own products and for clients around the world. And I wanted to tell you that because one other lesson I've learned is that for all the talk about process, it is okay to fall in love with something, to recklessly pursue something because that is what you enjoy doing. Now, it seems super obvious, but you'd be amazed at how many people doesn't think this applies to them. Now, I want to show you something just to hammer home this point. Something I usually show design students when I give talks at schools, so bear with me here. I call this thing the circle of fun. Now, it's quite simple. You do something you think is fun. You share it with someone on the internet, and there's almost always someone who thinks what you're doing is cool, that the internet is a wonderful place. And that, in turn, gets you more projects of that kind. Let me try to give you an example so that it makes more sense. I like making app icons, as I just said. Sometimes I just make them for fun, put them on Dribble or on Twitter or whatever, and some people find them interesting. They comment on them, they might even share them, and a client comes along and he needs an app icon. Now, he sees my stuff, the sort of stuff that I think are fun to make, right? And he hires me to do an icon. I can then take that icon, present it on my portfolio, And so the circle continues. I am now doing things that I think are fun. I am now choosing the direction myself. Unfortunately, on the flip side, there's also this thing that I call the circle of boring. Now, you do something you think is boring, right? It happens. You know, it might be your job, it might, you know, your boss might make you do it, might be your school, whatever, right? There are many reasons why we do things that we think are boring. Unfortunately, when you share that work, someone thinks it's cool. Now, that in turn, the world presents you with more opportunities of that nature. So an example, again, I'm not super keen on making websites for clients. That's just not my thing. I'm sort of more of a loosey, artistic guy. Has a lot of work. Let's say that I took that website project anyways. I needed the money, whatever. I take it, I make it, and then the project launches, the website launches. People are like, oh, who made your website? Oh, Michael made the website. Okay, hey, Michael, you want to make a website for me? No, right? In many ways, you become what you work on. That is why it's incredibly important to do what you think is fun. Now, a lot of people think the good projects, they're just around the corner. That's not how it works. Now, I think that you regularly need to look yourself in the mirror and see if you're in the right circle. So, as things were progressing, I was constantly experiencing things like this. I made something either for myself or for someone, and all of a sudden, I get to do a lot more of it, like making a bunch of food icons and becoming the professional food iconist that I am. Really weird. Now, I play around with the rendering one night, and the next thing I know, I end up with a line of posters on Society 6 that people are buying and hanging in their goddamn offices. Really weird. My wife liked this one. I created some resources for myself and then make them available for download. They get 1 million downloads, and I get invited to speak about icons around the world. That in turn has led me to build a platform for design resources with sort of these downloadable and evolving templates that help people jump over the technical obstacles and demystify design, empowering more people to make things, generally sort of making design templates available for people. It's called applypixels.com. Now, one thing kind of leads to the next, right? No matter what humble beginnings they might have, I become what I work on. Now, you want to be useful. This is true in so many aspects of life, but certainly in business and as a designer or as a developer. As long as you or your product is being useful to someone, you're off to a great start. It's a simple question to ask, really, and one that many overlook somehow. Are you really being useful? Now, we helped the nonprofit organization Be My Eyes design and launch their app that connects blind people with sighted people around the world. It's a beautiful project. They had an amazing launch at the website and designed the app, and the team that worked on it is super cool. They got worldwide coverage, and 300,000 people signed up in the first week to help out blind or weak-sighted people. And it was a crazy time, but it taught me that you can make things that change lives. Now, it took me a long time to figure this out. We're all very busy in our individual lives and our businesses and making the next big thing or whatever. But the fact is that if we can just sort of zoom out from the fiddling with that button as a designer or that interaction as a developer or that implementation, we can actually make things that change people's lives. It won't be handed to you either, right? When we got one of the new Apple TVs, right before it launched, the Apple TV 4, Apple sent us one of the units, test units. We sat around it and was like, what would be the coolest thing to make for this platform, right? Now, in Denmark, that would obviously be an app for the Danish national television. It's called DR. You probably have something similar here in France, like the National Broadcasting Corporation, right? Many had tried to pitch DR through the ages, and people said, don't bother, Michael, you'll never get through the bureaucracy of that organization. You can't make anything for DR. We were like, hey, whatever, let's just do it, right? We built the prototype in 2 weeks, recorded a video of it, undelayed it with horrible music, put it on YouTube. At the end of the video, we said, who do we need to talk to, DR? It's a very sassy move. That was a Friday. And next Tuesday, we were in a meeting with them. It was like dead quiet. And they're like leaning in across the table saying, we're just about to call legal. We'd like to hear what you have to say for yourselves. We're like, holy shit. I like pushed back the chair. I pitched my heart out about why this huge corporation should work with such a small team on building something like this. I pitched my heart out. And we actually ended up building it and launched it for them. And it's one of the most downloaded apps in Denmark on the platform. And it's actually critically been acclaimed as pushing tvOS UI really far. But there's a much more fun side to that story. Do you remember Bamse and Kylling? Yeah, Bamse and Kylling, that's obviously made by DR, right? So working on the DR app, I got to visit Bamse's house, damn it. Yeah, major bonus, right? That's why we build things. So don't wait for permission to do something awesome. Thinking about my professional life, it can essentially be boiled down to pursuing things that my inner kid would love. You want to listen to the kid in you. It's sort of a clear line to your real desires in a way. Sometimes we adults, said the man drinking a beer on stage, kind of feels like we kind of lost that little bit of ourselves somewhere along the line. But the fact is that we still have hobbies. We still have interests that we sometimes hide under this cloud of being an adult, right? And when you find something you want to do more, you need to take some serious steps towards doing it. Now, nothing is really handed to you, and I wanted to focus more of my time on making games. Completely full circle to Sun Games, sitting next to my friend Rasmus back that many years ago. So I started a company last year called North Place, specializing in entertainment design. And I have a 3-year-old son, and he loves trains, so we made a game about trains. We worked on it for months. It was like our first product, right? It's a new little game studio, so perilous. Everything depends on it. I was actually up in the room next door last year at Web Today, presenting, sort of very nervously presenting the game before it had launched. I'm pretty happy to report back to you guys a year later, because we've launched the game now, and the game is called Conduct This. And in Conduct This, you control these little trains, and you have to transport passengers, and you basically try to avoid these terrible accidents, right? It's pretty simple. You have different colored stations, different colored passengers, and you kind of tap trains to stop them, tap trains to start them. You can unlock all these worlds, and you can get new trains that you can play with. It seems like a kid's game on the surface of it, right? But it actually quickly turns out to be a horribly difficult game. It is incredibly tricky, because you're sort of multi-managing these trains. You have to get them around. And usually it ends up something like this. Yep, that's pretty much the frustration you're feeling when you're playing the game. Anyways, we launched Conduct This on December 2nd last year. It's been a wild ride. And early this year, we won an IMGA award for it in San Francisco, and the game's now been downloaded more than 2 million times. I'm telling you this because it helps me convey one of the last important lessons I want to tell you guys today. That is that I would never be able to do this. I can show you all these amazing things up here on stage, but if it wasn't for my awesome team. Now, that is Ulrik and that is Bas, and I'm also working with 2 Christians. And I work with some amazing people on all these things that I do. And you don't have to make everything alone. In fact, the most awesome things, they're usually made with other people. I see a lot of new entrepreneurs struggling with this somehow, right? Look around you. Look at the guy or girl sitting next to you at an event like this. Don't go on the journey of making things alone. Find someone to make something with. It is a lot easier and a lot more fun. Oh, a teaser slide. We're working on a new game. It's called Far Away. I can't tell anyone anything else now, but that's my hook into coming back next year. So you guys have to know what happens next year. But yeah, stay tuned on. I think it's faraway.com. It's really fun. I wanted to end up here. This screen is flashing at me. It's the last talk. There's no one after me, so I can totally go long. I wanted to end up here telling you guys again to do what you think is fun. Now, it sounds so obvious, I know, right? That people, they entirely overlook it, or they even dismiss it as a cliche, which is even worse. It's like a phrase that's really easy to repeat, but it's actually really hard to live by. It actually, I think it requires courage, and it requires you doing things in a different way. It's not just words, really. If you steer your life by it, you will find your way. Thank you. Woo! Woo!